those Sony fanboys need to prepare their buses, because seeing the PlayStation slugs dissolve in salt is truly a sight to behold, with the Keebler dwarf-looking weirdo Bobby Kotick applying the mountain of salt himself. I mean, let's be honest, Bobby Kotick is probably the happiest of all from this deal. He'll be putting the $69 billion into his pocket so he can buy himself 25 more yachts and more Bill Cosby rooms for the Blizzard crew. Hit the like button and subscribe right now if you want more content like this, because we are going to have some fun at the expense of a group of individuals who have the same mental capacity as 3 eggplants sitting next to a windowsill. It's time to put the tablet down. All of this yelling and crying is going to make your mummy take it away again. Although, you know what? Keep the tablet because it's hilarious watching you squirm. The $69 deal for Microsoft to acquire Activision Blizzard King was approved to proceed by a federal judge. The past 24 hours of this deal being approved really brought out the best and worst in all gamers, let me tell ya. People are shutting down their Twitter accounts in a fit of rage, trying desperately to try and avoid any kind of culpability, tucking their tails and running away like the cowards they are. The FTC got slapped and the CMA took an arrow to the knee. Stop being so sensitive. A lot of the people deleting their accounts are actually YouTubers who are supposed to have some kind of responsibility and integrity. It's truly embarrassing, but what's also embarrassing is the lack of evidence presented by the FTC and Sony for this entire process. I would actually call it disrespectful because it's a waste of time and resources for everybody. However, I read somewhere that the ponies were like, why are so many people interested in this? Who cares? We're just here for the games. I'll tell you why, you imbecile. The reason why the FTC hearing should be interesting to every single gamer is because every single person who took the stand, right from Bobby Kotick to Jim Ryan to Phil Spencer and Pete Hines, the head of marketing over at Bethesda, they were under oath, which means they had to tell the truth. Otherwise, they'd be in jail. And funny enough, imagining Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Studios, in the prison showers, offering Game Pass to everybody as a way to avoid getting his booty clapped is quite an amusing thought. However, I digress. These people couldn't lie. When are you ever going to get a situation when the heads of all these companies are forced to tell the truth? Because they can lie all they want when it comes to the gaming journalists or their cult-like fanboys. And they 100% will in the future, but in the federal court system, their words mean something because they are under oath. They would be crazy to lie, because not only would Matt Booty be giving up that booty in jail, but those words will be used against them the next time they try and buy a big studio. And I don't know how many times I'm gonna say booty, but Matt Booty literally said in an email, quote, "We want to spend Sony out of business," end quote. That is biblical. You are never going to hear that anywhere else. That is something you'd hear fanboys say on Twitter, not an executive at a $1 trillion company. That's honestly such a vindictive thing to say, and I'm surprised people aren't making a bigger deal out of it. But that's my point. It's amazing that we got crazy, juicy statements like that littered everywhere. And when I think about it, it's actually quite a genius move by Microsoft. Quit trying to go toe-to-toe with Sony and fight them straight up. Play dirty in a way that only you can. Make acquisitions with big publishers that produce big games, and combine your Xbox and PC markets into one. And then continue to push compatibility and crossplay. Essentially, you've suffocated your opponent while still being within like the realm of legal monopoly, and without actually having to address them publicly in the future. Anyway, all ABK games currently available and in the future will be on Game Pass. I think the biggest benefit of the acquisition is the possibility of Activision bringing back dormant franchises. I mean, think about it. Many of their studios have been repurposed as COD support studios, so it would be nice if they went back to work on separate projects. That's honestly really all I care about. But having said all of that, it was so surreal watching this $1 trillion corpo keep talking about just how awful and terrible they are at their jobs. That's another thing you'll only hear in this kind of FTC hearing. I can't believe the PR campaign of me, Microsoft, such a small little guy. I lost the console war. Please approve. I tell you what, Phil Spencer does it again. Genius strategy. And when the judge said the FTC's job is to protect the consumers, not Sony, at that point I knew it was over. Because the reality is that both the FTC and Sony were grilled and exposed for their hypocritical wolf tactics. That's what really stunted the CMA and FTC's argument, was its insistence on explaining the effects on Sony and not the consumer. I mean, wow, if you're going to argue that it's bad for consumers, you actually need to mention the consumers in your argument, you absolute moron. You looked like a Sony lackey the entire time, and it really harmed what could have been a good argument. There was probably a legitimate argument against Microsoft, but they fumbled the football. And another reason why they failed was their refusal to acknowledge that Nintendo is a competitor. And instead they focused their arguments around Nintendo basically not existing. That shoots you right in the foot when you try and argue that PlayStation would basically go in the trash if Call of Duty stopped being released on it. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Nintendo is a prime example of a console thriving without Call of Duty. So Call of Duty can't be used as a console saver if you don't acknowledge the Switch succeeding without COD. But like I said, it's amateur hour over at the FTC and CMA. There was a good argument in there somewhere against an acquisition like this going through, but they had no idea what they were doing. And don't you find it ironic how the FTC is just so focused on preventing Microsoft from becoming a monopoly? Meanwhile, Disney, Nestle, BlackRock, and Tencent own the entire world. Disney buys every big company under the sun and everything is A-okay. Maybe they're focusing on the wrong things. On that bombshell, Mannix out.